Hello again. There can be few graver offences in modern Britain than to jeer at a person because of their physical appearance. To point and laugh at somebody in a wheelchair, for instance, would be unforgivable. Nor would it be acceptable to laugh at people because of their scars or deformity. As for making fun of people just because of the colour of their skin, it need hardly be said that this would quite possibly end up with a visit from the police. There is one circumstance, though, when this modern convention may be set aside and you are able freely to mock somebody simply because of skin colour. This is when the object of your scorn is a white person. In the United States, white people who worked bent over in the fields in the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries had only their necks exposed to the sun. This was the part of the body which burned, and it gave rise to the expression rednecks. It came to be used for working class rural whites, especially those of conservative views. Although there has been an attempt in recent years by some of those so designated to reclaim the term and use it themselves, it remains derogatory. The expression suggests ignorance and lack of sophistication. It is interesting to note that left-wing and progressive people who would not dream of applying an offensive expression to African Americans based upon the colour of their skin think nothing of calling those whom they despise rednecks. Would they describe Native Americans as redskins? One rather suspects that they would not. In the last 4 or 5 years, a similar expression to the American redneck has crept insidiously into usage in Britain. At first, the appellation gammon was applied just to white people with pink faces. In this sense, it can be found occasionally as far back as the 19th century. But since around 2016, the year, of course, of the referendum on leaving Europe, it has come to be used exclusively as a sneering term for white people who seem less than enthusiastic about the multicultural society. Any white person who voted to leave the European Union and says that there needs to be control of immigration is fair game to be called a gammon. Anybody who disapproves of developments such as homosexual marriage or other modern fads will likewise be at risk of finding them described by right-on and left-wing folk as gammons. It has become the British equivalent of redneck, signifying a type of white person for whom one might feel contempt. Imagine speaking of any other ethnicity in terms of their skin colour. As I say, we all know that redskin is an outdated and offensive term for First Nation people because we do not these days define people in a negative way by the colour of their skin. Indeed, we don't define people by the colour of the skin even if we're saying something vaguely positive about them. It would be wholly unacceptable today to talk of dusky-skinned maidens, say, to describe young black or Asian women. Where white people are concerned, though, anything goes, and if you find their skin colour funny, why not make a joke of it? I will readily confess that I'm growing a little weary of this kind of double standard. But then again, as an archetypal gammon, I suppose that I would feel that way. There was a time, perhaps 50 years ago, when the hope was that the colour of a man's skin would one day be of no more consequence than the colour of his eyes. Not only has that not happened, the reverse seems to be true. As the years pass, the colour of people's skin actually seems to matter more and more for both black people and white. This seems to me a shame, and I can't help thinking that dreaming up new and insulting ways to talk about white people is not very helpful for harmonious relations between the races.